All right, I'm with a very special guest for the end of season review. Paul, how are you doing, sir?
I worked out before the show started that we started this podcast 15 years ago. 15 years ago.
I don't know how that's possible. I'm still like 30.
Yeah,
so...
you were really young. I mean, to be fair, at 15, if podcast existed, then you definitely would have started a Man United podcast at age 15.
Probably. Am I the Andy Mitten of podcasting?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
He's been doing it even longer than we have, hasn't he?
Considerably longer.
Not
yes. Podcasting, though. I reckon we were there first with that one.
Just about, yeah. The UWS podcast has been going for a while, but it's a kind of reaction outside of the stadium after games type format, which is great.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. All right. So the plan today is to think about the season just gone. Usual format. We're going to talk about keepers, defenders, midfielders, forwards, best goal, whatever other random podcasters award of the year. We come up with the manager a little bit, and
he's not getting an award. I'm not giving him an award.
No.
He
manager of the season, Kieran McKenna.
yeah. Managers, players, manager of the season.
Yeah, all very good. Okay, well, it's a couple of days after the cup final, so let's talk about that a little bit. It's still buzzing. I'm still buzzing.
Honestly, like the women's FA Cup final was so good. I mean, it was so good. Obviously, we mostly played them off the park, and that Alatoon goal was
banger,
fantastic. And it's a bit like Maradona 86 in that the defending was terrible, but that doesn't take anything away from how good the goal was. And the drop of the shoulder and the bit, like, it was such a kind of floating on the cloud. And after that game, it's like, okay, well, we've won an FA Cup this season. That's the kind of lovely, bubbly high that we're going to get. And then the men's team are going to get battered by City, and it's going to be really glum and feel super flat. But we'll always have Tooney. And then, I genuinely gave serious consideration to not watching this game. It was that not like lip service. Like, I really seriously thought about it. And because I just it's so dispiriting to watch us get the way that City beat us is always like, oh God, they're so boring and rubbish. I mean, they're obviously brilliant, but like this as a spectacle, it's just like, oh, yeah, well, we're going to just wait until which one of these 1,000 cuts actually kills you, but one definitely will. So for them to calamitously lose that first goal and then Bruno to do like everything about it, the Rashford ball, I've seen your clip of you talking to Dan about it, and like the Rashford ball, the movement, the kind of even Bruno's ball out to Rashford's really good. And that no-look pass is like, that makes it one of the great FA Cup goals. That's like
it's a great goal.
Pele's 1970 pass to Carlos Alberto, right? Like it's, I mean, we're not that old, to be clear. we're old enough to have had that on VHS.
Very much so.
Yeah, which is old, with
overdubbed commentary as well. Yeah. I had that one. Yeah. No, it's absolutely perfect. It's Bruno, Cobby bringing it out of their own box, out to Rashford, the Hollywood ball out to Garnacho, the timing of the run, the movement, the no-look pass, and the cool as fuck finish.
It's just so good.
Every time Cobby Mainoo does something special, I'm just like, you fucking sad virgin stats nerds.
Why were they sad? Do they not like Cobby Mainoo?
No, after about 10 games, they were out in full, all of them going, his underlying stats aren't very good.
Wow.
Or he can't possibly do second phase build-up. No, he could do all. And you're sad. Get a life. Watch some actual football. There's never been... I don't want to get into hyperbole, Paul, but I think he may be the best player that's ever played football.
Yeah.
He may have invented the game.
What I can't believe is that you've turned on the stats nerds. So you're now like a proper football man. How's that happened? You used to be on the other side of that debate.
I'm going to start policing fandoms. No, I'm not because I do think data and data is really important in telling a story about football, but also analysing it and understanding what goes right and what goes wrong. And for sure, I think I've used data in my professional life a lot. Set up AI lab, for fuck's sake, right? You know, I do know something about it, but I think sometimes people jump the shark, and they very much jump the shark on Kobbie Mainoo. Less than 10 games, and they're going, "Oh, he's never going to be any good."
Well, it's a Rashford Iheanacho thing all over again, right? Like that's the kind of example, because that was so early in the conversation around XG. And I remember watching that conversation and thinking, like, you know, I have no idea what the truth will turn out to be. And probably the truth turned out to be somewhere in the middle. But watching Rashford, it was absolutely evident that there was something remarkably special, because there's something remarkably special about a teenager who can perform on the big stage, especially if you can do it, broadly speaking, consistently. I mean, maybe data analysts and all these kind of people would back their metrics on teenagers to sort of, but I remember us talking about, like, you don't care about XG or passes completed, not completed, but like forward progressions and all that. You're not looking at the data for the only data point that really matters for teenagers is minutes played at the top level. Like that's the thing that's almost going to differentiate you the most, because you're getting this experience that your peers aren't getting. I mean, Kobbie Mainoo is the best teenager I've seen since Wayne Rooney. Like that, I mean, at United, Jude Bellingham would obviously be in that category, but the idea that for England, the two of them will be at the kind of heart of that midfield for however long. It's no, you know, Jordan Henderson's been binned off by Southgate for numerous reasons, but there's no doubt Mainoo's one of them.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, he said Mainoo has a profile that we don't have, and it's very true. I mean, the thing, I think, again, not to be ridiculous about the hype, but I think the question really is where he's going to be brilliant for the next 10 years. You know, is it 6, 8, further forward than that? Because, and we'll get on to goals of the season, but there's legitimately 3 of his goals in there, I think, in the mixer for United goal of the season. So, I mean, to come back to the FA Cup final, the Women's FA Cup final, great performance. Obviously, it's been a crappy season. We won't spend much time on the women's team here. There are great podcasts out there and YouTube channels that do much better analysis than we will. Half the women's games are at 12:30 UK time, which is not good for me. So I have to admit, I've only seen about half of the games this season. But that cup final was great. Fantastic performance, banger of a goal. Capped off what has been a pretty disappointing season, finishing 5th in the WSL, which is a regression. There are reasons, obviously, a lot of injuries on the women's side as well. A lot of criticism of Skinner that he hasn't actually used a number of the players they brought in. They had this big trolley dash right at the end of the window, brought in all these players, and Skinner just basically stuck with his core, which is, it's kind of odd.
Yeah, especially when it's not working, right? Like that's...
Yeah, and it's been a consistent criticism of him as well. And then the one-dimensional tactics that they are a bit direct. But he got a new contract, so the club has some level of faith. I kind of suspect he got a contract in part because there isn't a director of football on the women's side. There's still a sort of interim, and they haven't staffed it out properly, and it's probably one of those decisions they can punt down the road a little bit. Which is a little condescending, but
the thing that struck me, and this is of course not an original thought in the slightest, is just the scale of big game player that Ella Toone is. I mean, she is United's best number 7 since David Beckham.
Michael Owen.
I'm skipping the one that I've written out of history for my own reasons. But no, I mean, she has got that thing that just takes them to the next level when the pressure's really, really on, and she's done it for England so consistently. And I kind of was a bit sad that Arsenal won the League Cup, because I think it would have been really funny if Ella Toone had a trophy and Alessia Russo didn't this season. that would have been funny. But anyway.
Yes, well, I mean, the big question on the women's team is whether they can get Mary Earps to sign a new contract. Yeah, doesn't seem likely at the moment.
You wouldn't if you were her, right? I mean, obviously, I don't know. It depends, I guess, on the skin. She obviously has a big emotional connection to United, but so did Russo. And, I'm joking about that. And you just wouldn't. I mean, even if Ella Toone left, these are players that could play for the best team. I mean, Mary Earps, is there a better goalkeeper in women's football than Mary Earps? I don't know. But you wouldn't blame her for leaving, would you? That's
no. No, that's right. And the club has to show a level of ambition. And I mean, as I've said on the podcast before, I actually think it's a easier lift to improve the women's team just because of the scale of the finances involved. There is a salary cap, but there are ways around it, especially kind of cross funding or cross sponsorship or proportion sponsorship and stuff like that. So it just depends on the scale of ambition of the new ownership and their ability to focus on. Like, there's so much in the club that needs to be fixed after 20 years of damage, and it depends on where their focus is. And clearly, they've been kind of staffing out the executive parts of the club first. That's an overall picture. Of course, Omar Barada's CEO will be in a month and a bit, and he will be CEO for the whole club, not just the men's side. But they've obviously got a lot of stuff to fix on infrastructure, on the training ground, on players, manager potentially. We'll get to him, and the women's team.
Yeah. So the men's,
but anyway, the men's team. Yes,
the men's FA Cup final. I mean, I've never ever been as surprised about the result of a football match as that. I mean, it was completely shocking, and what a run! The Amad Diallo goal against Liverpool, Coventry final. But then that, I mean, I don't know, it's really emotional, man, because it was a phenomenal effort of collective will. I mean, Mainey said something that I thought was really telling in the post-match interview, which he said, and I don't think he meant to be as revealing as he was, but he's a teenager who just won the FA Cup and had scored what is effectively the winning goal.
Yeah.
And he's going to the Euros and he had a nice bucket hat. So, he was excited. But he said it's been amazing the way that the players and the staff, the whole staff, everyone's all pulled together for this one. And you're like, yeah, I mean, the thing that lovely sentiment suggests, when combined with our experience of watching what's actually happened, is that they have not been doing that for all the other games, which would be, and there was, I think it was Martinez, right, in the interview with Andy Mitten, where he said, when the fans are like that, it is hard to lose. And it was amazing. And it's like United as defiant underdogs against City is obviously a weird position to be in, but that's how it felt. And it felt like an incredible collective emotional effort when combined with, obviously Amrabat, McTominay, Mainu, like he did the thing you have to do to win this game. He made it compact. He packed the midfield. He didn't play Højlund. He played Rashford and Garnacho so that it was all just a block and then two fast lads. Like that's, that was the whole thing. And it worked brilliantly. And I do think the fact that I think that kind of the intensity of effort had some impact on that Guardiola Ortega misunderstanding. Like that, just the vibes were wrong for City and the vibes were right for us,
Yeah. Of course, details could have meant it went in a very different direction. Haaland hitting the post bar, a great chance for Alvarez, and so on and so on and so on. And we needed a bit of luck, and we got a bit of luck. And that's what you need to be a team that's got 115 charges for 15 years of state-sponsored, manipulative cheating on a scale we've never seen in professional sport before.
Yeah.
By the way, check my Twitter timeline for the most awesome thread I've ever seen on Twitter.
Right.
Where this guy does a 25 tweet breakdown, including his blue tick extra length. It's a good hour's read, but in incredible detail, looking into the charges. We all knew this because it's actually all public. And I know I'm going off on a rant here, but there are some journalists, including the main City journalist covering City for The Athletic, who are just fucking cheerleaders. And I just don't think that's cool. I know it's their model. And we'd have been trapped in that if we'd taken the Athletic Wonga those years ago. But they're cheerleaders and they're just like hiding behind, let's see what happens. No, it's all public. We've seen it. They would have been kicked out of the Champions League for years and years and years if they hadn't very successfully just obfuscated giving information over for long enough that they timed out of being charged. And, you know, it's ridiculous, really. But anyway, I'm going off on one because that matters. That matters because City are in a position where they beat us a lot, and they wouldn't have been in that position. And I don't actually, obviously I'm a United fan, but I don't begrudge other teams winning. That's part of competitive sport. If United had won the league every year for the last 25 years, everyone would be saying this is really boring, and because it would have been, right? So the highs are high because the lows are low.
And they've won 4 in a row, and they just won the treble, and both of those hurt from a tribal perspective for United fans, particularly United fans who have lots of kind of close relationships with City fans all around them and work with them, and all of that stuff. That those are 2 big kind of bragging rights things, right? Like, how long did they sing "You'll Never Win the Treble" at Vincent Kompany? And it's like, well, you can't sing that at City anymore. And 4 in a row, like we used to sing "You'll Never Win 3 in a row" at Chelsea, probably still do. And so these are sort of big United tentpole achievements. So 2 things about that. One, the financial doping aspect of that completely, I mean, I'm sure City fans don't feel this way for the most part, although I'm sure there are also some who do. But that completely takes the achievement. I mean, it makes the achievement, it completely denigrates those levels of achievement. The truth is, Guardiola is still the best manager of elite footballers in the world, probably ever, in terms of, like, if you have an unlimited budget and you could pick from any manager in history, he's probably the one that you would choose. And they have used their ill-gotten gains extremely well, which is not taken for granted. That's not a default assumption. Newcastle haven't won anything yet. I'm sure they will. But do you know what I mean? Like, it's money doesn't. You need to use it wisely. United have spent how much? But so on that level, the charges matter, and their achievements are kind of relevant, and also their achievements are extremely relevant in that, like, I'm sure quite a lot of City fans would have swapped winning the league this season for beating United in the FA Cup final. It's
those one-offs really matter, and you can see it in the United fan sentiment. I think MEN ran a poll before the cup final, and about 2/3 of United fans wanted Ten Hag out. They ran the poll after the cup final, and 2/3 want him in. I mean, it's just like classic fandom, isn't it? We are so short-termist, and recency bias like kicks in an extremely strong fashion. Because that FA Cup final was the greatest game I've ever seen.
And Kobbie Mainoo is the best teenager ever to play in the Premier League. I mean, that was...
Football didn't exist before he was born. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, I'm increasingly convinced, non-ironically, that might end up being true. But, he's very good, is all I'm saying. Did you see the video of the kid who his dad met on the escalators at Wembley? There was a little kid with a Mainoo shirt on, and the man behind the camera goes, "Oh, is that your favourite player?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, it's my son." It's lovely.
Nice.
It's a lovely video.
Nice.
Yeah. But, it was completely joyful, and, seeing for every time Fergie was on the big screen, there's a massive cheer goes up. I was talking to a friend who was there, and he was saying it was deafening, the cheers for Fergie, which is so beautiful with, everything that's happened this year. And Bruno seeking out Fergie behind the kind of row of people, and you could just see like Fergie coming into frame on the telly to shake Bruno's hand. It was really special, and the little shot of Fergie singing "Glory, Glory, Man United" went a long way to making you feel good. Yeah, and him tapping the watch, brilliant. Like all of that stuff. It was lovely that he was such a kind of prevalent part of the coverage in a way that sort of has no impact on the kind of backseat manager Busby type stuff. This is just he's the ultimate grandee of the club, having a lovely old day. And we all love him. That's nice.
His shadow doesn't. I mean, he's obviously got a very long shadow, but it's not impacting managers because it's 10 years removed now, and we've also had 10 years of failure. There's no doubt Fergie's the man, but he's not over at Carrington telling telling Garrick how to put the cones out or anything like that.
No.
All right, let's get to some of the review of the season.
Okay.
So
it was bad.
We won't get
it was bad. That's my review. It's really bad. We finished eighth. That's worse than David Moyes.
It is worse than David Moyes. Got more points than Moyes,
okay.
though. Did we? He got 64. I think we got more points.
Okay, well done.
Totally forget. I blanked out.
Moyes didn't have negative goal difference, though.
No, got more points than Ralph as well. Uncle Ralph, who now,
forgot about him.
Billy Big Bollocks, Ralph now, turning Bayern down, going, no, I don't want that. Too important. Wow, how the tables are turned. Yeah. Yes, it was a very bad season. So we're going to talk a little bit about goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders, strikers, and pick out a few. I don't think we'll go through all 30-odd members of the squad or anything like that. Talk about our favourite goals of the season, and then get onto the manager. At least at the time of recording, he is still manager. I was planning, we're recording on Monday, the 27th of May in the evening, UK time, and I was planning on putting this out later this week. So he might have gone by then. So put it in that or maybe he signed a new 5-year contract. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? Goalkeeper of the season. Well, it's a bit hard to look beyond because Onana played every game except for one.
Yeah, I think he's had a fascinating season. I mean, I do feel like I've got a perspective that is different from most people who are probably maybe like even listening to this show, in that I have watched probably less United than the average person that's listening to this show this season. I've watched a fair amount all in, but there's been big swathes of the season where I either haven't been able to, or it's just been like, do something else. And, I did miss a lot of the calamitous Onana stuff early in the season, but he really has come a long way. And it was really, he was vital to us winning the FA Cup. He nearly cost us big time because it should have been saved. But there were, I think, two where you could go, well, they definitely shouldn't have been saved, and he did save them. So, that's I wouldn't be ready to write him off yet by any stretch of the imagination.
That cup final game was actually him in a nutshell, right? That is his season. He made a couple of fantastic saves. He chucked one in where he really should have saved it. He got a good hand to it and somehow didn't get down. Takes a step the wrong way. It feels like a fairly fundamental flaw that could be coached out, but hasn't been. He's so secure with the ball at his feet, short, long, whatever. He is a third centre back in that sense. In fact, teams don't tend to press him anymore because they're just wasting. Like they're just allowing gaps to pass through midfield. He obviously looks even better with Martinez in the side because you just get the progression from keeper to Martinez into midfield, and his ability to build up is so much better, right? So I understand why Eric wanted him. The weird thing is, for most of the season, it's partly injury related and partly tactical, and Onana's just been banging it long because he doesn't trust United's ability to build up, or that's been the tactic, right? Big gap in midfield, get it into the fast guys up front as soon as possible, and so the thing that makes him special is the thing that we kind of removed from his arsenal tactically, and then he's untidy, he does make mistakes.
And he's a goalkeeper, but so that's making mistakes means conceding goals most of the time, which is a real problem. Like being a bit sloppy sometimes is like one of the worst things a goalkeeper can possibly be. I wonder how much of the early season stuff. I mean, this is all. I think I probably would have had a different prepared statement about the future of Andre Onana if he hadn't just chucked one into his net the day before yesterday. But it felt like the balance was turning. The overall levels of performance have been like way higher, and it almost felt like he'd been prematurely written off in a way that happens with a lot of new signings. In that, there's a sort of percentage of players for whom their first season in the Premier League you have to slightly write it off because it's such a different affair to really any other league in the world, I guess. So.
He said it himself, right? He said it took him 6 months to settle. So let's, we can write off some of the bad stuff. I do worry that there are some fundamentals not quite right. He's definitely not perfect. Bayern, kind of confused about that one. He's a Turkish international. He's not that old. He came to United to sit on the bench. Even that game against Wigan in the Cup where Andre Onana managed to chuck a whole bunch in the Africa Cup of Nations, so they got sent home early. It's all very odd.
Yeah.
Not really sure if I was a goalkeeper of standing. I'm not sure I'd be sticking around to never play. So it'd be interesting to see whether he leaves. Obviously, I guess Tom Heaton will probably leave this summer. I think he's out of contract, if I'm right.
That is absolutely classic play. You forget's in the squad, isn't it? Tom Heaton.
He was in the academy players.
Nice
photo.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
With Johnny Evans.
Tom Heaton, Johnny Evans. Tom Heaton's literally old enough to be Kobbie Mainoo's dad. So,
is Johnny Evans probably just about at a push?
Probably just about at a push.
I mean, it would have been a social services situation potentially, but that's nonetheless.
All right, defenders. What a mess this has been. I mean, we've had Tyrone Malacia out for the entire season, hasn't played a single minute. Luke Shaw's missed about half of it through injury. Rafa Varane's missed about half of it. He's only actually played about half the minutes throughout his contract.
Really was very happy to have played for Man United. Oh, Rafa Varane, wasn't he? Like, really?
He was.
And that stuff works on me every single time. It's like, and I do think there's United fans. I remember writing this article for you, Maxit, a long time ago, about why United fans were much nicer to Schweinsteiger than Fellaini, even though really in relative terms, Fellaini made much more positive contribution overall. Also a more negative contribution, and it's just like, United fans absolutely love the worldie. Like there's a relationship between Laurent Blanc, Varane, even there's something about a player who's got that stature on the world stage that will be given that kind of like you're one of us pass. Particularly, I'm particularly talking about the kind of Old Trafford community. There's something about that's like, you belong here, about players like that. I don't know.
He didn't do a lot of fan service for Varane, the occasional bit, especially near the end, sitting in the Old Trafford pitch and soaking it all in and taking selfies with the fans and loving the FA Cup final and all that. Yeah, I wish he'd stayed fitter longer. Because he was outstanding in that cup final. Everything he did was right. Yeah,
him and Martinez so clearly far and away United's best centre-back pairing.
Yeah, for sure. And as for the rest of them, Lindelof spent much of the season injured as well, and he's Victor Lindelof. We know what he is. He's not that good. Harry Maguire, he's had a decent season, but it's just like if you want to be a possession dominant side and play a high line, it's clearly Harry can never do it. It's just never. There's nothing about his performance levels that can fix that fundamental problem.
Yeah. Also, maybe I'm being excessively harsh, but it really feels like kind of the level that Harry Maguire has to get to for everyone to go, oh, isn't Harry Maguire doing well? It's like, I mean, he's not an absolute walking disaster half the time. That's, it's, I don't know. Maguire's been a terrible fit for United since he was signed, I guess. And never more so than the United that Ten Hag has been trying to build.
For sure. We grade him really on a curve to use an American phrase, which is,
And he's, and it's got to be so sort of emotionally difficult to go, like, the club doesn't want you in the summer, and there's never been a hint of downing tools or, and you could say, well, that's your job and go all Roy Keane, but we know how many players would have been mardy about the fact that they were trying to, but he's really tried to fight for his place and fight for his United status and all of that kind of stuff. And,
worth respecting that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He also has a really big head, and I'm not into that. So,
hey, come on now. The big headed have to stick together.
I'd send you
I can't wear commercially.
NQAT bucket
yeah,
hat.
exactly. Yeah. I can't wear commercially available hats. They just sit on my head at the top.
No, they all come in one size. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Yeah. Who else? Willy Cambuala had a few games, looked all right. It's hard to say. It's really hard to know what his ceiling is because when I've seen him in the 23s, and admittedly, I'm not Youth Hawk watching every single game, or Mr. Mujek and all of those guys. He's looked a little bit untidy to me. Like his passing isn't perhaps up to scratch for a modern defender. I'm not willing to write him off by any means because, he did good things. Liverpool game came in, did good stuff, right? Also fell over one time, which was
it was really, really sad that was, because it was, like that it just felt like really harsh for a kid, for that to happen to a kid.
Yeah. Lisandro Martinez just hadn't played enough. Really unfortunate.
He's just an absolute class apart, isn't he, when he plays?
He's so good. I mean, Pep was blowing smoke up his arse saying he's in the top 5. Have we ever used the phrase? He must be in the top 5 defenders in the world.
Yeah, Johnny Evans.
In the show. Yeah, Johnny Evans is the player Lisandro Martinez hopes to be. I mean, he's so good. He's so good. And no one's talking about his height anymore because honestly, it doesn't matter. And he's just a brilliant defender and he's a brilliant passer and he makes a big difference to the team and he seems to get it, like singing songs with Andy Mitten after the cup final. So yes, A plus if he was fit. Unfortunately, he hasn't been fit, but most of it seems to have been really unlucky. I mean, he had a metatarsal break and then it broke again. And then, those kind of impact injuries affect other parts of your body, as Luke Shaw has found out for his whole career, basically. That leg break, impacts injuries elsewhere all of the time. So I hope that doesn't happen to Lisandro. I hope that we get a full season out of him because we'll definitely be better for it.
Yeah, for sure. And very hard to pick an award. Oh, no, it isn't. It's really easy to get. Oh, yeah, of course. It's really easy. Who's defender of the season? Can we talk about Aaron Wan-Bissaka a bit? So
yeah, we have to. Yeah,
it's a weird player, man.
So weird.
He made an incredible tackle in the penalty area. I mean, we used to say about Ashley Young that if you do quarter circle forward and press hard punch, Ashley Young will cut inside and try and curl one into the far top corner. And Aaron Wan-Bissaka will tackle you accurately in the penalty area. He will make a physical maneuver which, in 21st century football, only ever leads to a penalty being given away. I mean, when does anyone make a slide tackle in the box to take the ball off the foot of an attacker in the penalty area? That never, ever happens, except Aaron Wan-Bissaka does it, and every time he does it, he gets it right.
Yeah.
Apart from...
He feels like, to me, a special teams player, for certain games... Great, but it's not many, and it shouldn't be many for a team that is trying to challenge at the top. He's the kicker in American football. He's Chris Jordan bowling the last 2 overs of T20. He's he does one thing brilliantly, Wan-Bissaka, but the ability to do any kind of build up with him in the team. I mean, he fills his pants every single time he gets the ball. It's just the contrast between how good he is at marking a player out of the game. When he has to, and when he does the attacking in possession stuff, it's just so wide. I can't he needs to go to a team where he does defending 75% of the time because he'll look fantastic.
Yeah,
and he'll go from being a £10 million player, which is what United will get for him if they sell him this summer, to being a £50 million player again, and we'll bring back Ed Woodward to bring out his 800 right backs database and buy him all over again.
I just can't let that piece of business go by without making it very clear that Chris Jordan is not.
He's got more than
Chris Jordan's like the best fielder in the world, and he's actually like a really handy batsman. He kind of bowls pretty dry middle overs as well nowadays. Kind of reinvented himself. Anyway, yeah.
Clearly, my T20 knowledge is a little out of date.
The defender of the season is obviously Diogo Dalot, right? Like, who was which one player of the season?
Yeah, one of the players' player of the season. Yeah,
and I remember. So after, I can't even remember which game it was. I messaged Musa after the game saying Diogo Dalot should legitimately play for Real Madrid. Like, he would be so good if he played for a really big, really good team. And he seems to have grown into a leader, and I don't know, just the whole package is working for me with Diogo Dalot. Like, I don't know how good he is, but I feel like he has the kind of, he's good enough and he has the personality. And I think United really, I mean, we've talked about how much United have needed leaders. With how many conversations have we ever had about that? Hundreds. And he really does have that energy. I think I think the fact that all the players voted for him is very telling and appropriate. even though obviously they should have voted for Kobbie Mainoo. Because
clearly, yeah. I mean, let's just police their fandom. It's wrong. I feel like he's a 7 out of 10 in everything at the moment, and nothing's outstanding. So he didn't become the attacking right back that I think maybe we thought he would become. Right. He doesn't deliver loads of numbers. What he has done really well is, and modern tactical stuff. He inverts and comes into midfield, and he looks very, very comfortable there. When we think about, I forget who he scored it against, where he pops up on the edge of the box and bends one into the top corner earlier in the season. Was it Burnley? Sheffield United? Whatever. And his ability to add a number in midfield is great. He makes fewer mistakes defensively. So he's become a very consistent package. Now, is there a better right back in the world? I'm absolutely sure. But he's solved a problem. And so I'd put it like this. If I had a certain amount of budget and I was bringing players in, he wouldn't be in the top 5 or 6 or 7 players I'd want to swap. Maybe for a title-winning, Champions League-winning side, I'd want a better right back than him. But right now, it's not the priority.
Yeah, I'll be very interested to see what he looks like in a better side as well. Because I do think he's a player that would be better in a better side. And I think that 7 out of 10 at everything really is bumped up a level if your personality. This is where intangibles are so important in team sports, and that you contribute something kind of ethereal. That's not the word I mean. Intangible, to the overall kind of atmosphere.
A little bit of ethereal in there.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Diogo Dalot is an angel sent to save us all. That's Kobbie Mainoo. But no
doubt.
Yeah. Although he picked Drake as one of his dream dinner party guests, and he's young. I feel like Drake would be really spectacularly boring at a dinner party. That's my instinct about Drake. Anyway,
I'm here for the diss tracks. That's it.
Yeah.
If he disses Kobbie, that's it. I riot.
Yeah. So the Dalot thing, like you say, you just don't need to upgrade him, and obviously he's been United's. I mean, not on a kind of day by day basis. Like Martinez would be defender of the season if it was quality. Right, that's sure. Who you'd pick. Maybe Luke Shaw's in the running at that point. Varane, obviously, in the 3 games where he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm Raphael Varane. Oh yeah, I remember Champions League Varane." Like that, he turns up every now and again. But Dalot's consistency won him Players Player of the season, and it's an obvious choice for the Rantcast Defender of the Year award.
Very good. That's all the defenders, I think. I can't remember.
We've probably forgotten some of the main ones, I would guess, but
I don't think so. Midfield has mostly been a disaster zone, except for Kobbie Mainoo. So clearly he's the award winner there. But some weird stuff happened in midfield. You've got Amrabat, who United chased all summer, only to leave it to right till the last moment to then pay an extraordinarily high loan fee. And then Ten Hag never used him except for when he needed an emergency left back. And then in the last 3 games of the season where he looked really good. I just don't get it. It's so weird. I mean, I don't think he's that good. I think any player that plays in a system where you compress midfield so you don't have to have a lot of space there to cover looks much better. Defensive midfielders look much better unless they are peak Kante. They can't cover the space for 2 men, right? So they just,
I mean, it feels like the times when he hasn't been good, he's also just been absolutely hung out to dry systemically.
Yeah. Well, mind you, that Brighton game, it was a performance of such utter ineptitude. Yeah. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, is he drunk? What's going on? It just like everything he did bad, and then he made the cup final, and it was the right call.
Yeah, and sort of easily and obviously the right call, because it's an you look better in those kind of systems, but it's still an art to play the role in those systems, and maybe you just grow up doing that your whole life, and that's what you're really good at, and so you need to be given the opportunity to do that. What do you think of Scott McTominay's season? I find it completely impossible to. I mean, he is such a big moments player, and it's like I wouldn't want to say anything bad about Scott McTominay, given how desperate he is to do well for United and how, I mean, that doesn't mean that you can be free from kind of critical analysis of performance, but
and the performances are mostly, apart from those moments where he scores goals, are mostly dreadful because he just doesn't play much of a role, and almost it's one of the things I hate about Weghorst in the team, or in fact actually even more than this Fellaini. He makes players play a certain way. Right. And he makes Ten Hag play a certain way when he's in the team. So he's only in there for the moments. And so if the moments don't happen, United are a player short. And like he's not as technically good as any of the other midfielders. He doesn't really contribute anything defensively. He doesn't really contribute anything to the build-up. He doesn't really contribute anything in an attacking sense, except for he's one of the coolest players you'd want. Like when it comes to finish a moment, like I don't know, he'd be the player I would pick at United, but he might be in the top 5.
Yeah.
You have to score a goal. There's a chance last minute of a Champions League final or whatever. Although if we're making a Champions League final with Scott McTominay,
no, he comes off the bench.
He comes off the bench. Yeah. So, like, if we had a good offer for him, I'd probably take the money if you could reinvest it elsewhere. Yeah. But if he stays, I'm not going to be upset. He's got something. I just don't like the way it like Ten Hag has this idea of what he can offer, and I think the negatives outweigh the positives most of the time. He also seems like a top lad, and he got Rasmus extremely drunk from the post-match pictures.
The kind of long non-dropping of Scott McTominay, the long running fiasco that was play Scott McTominay every single week without fail under all circumstances, regardless of whatever.
There was a long amount of that, yes.
And it's these are the things why I can't. I mean, I understand the sort of better the devil you know thing about the manager, and again, the kind of United culture remains, even though we've seen off manager after manager after manager. The instinct of the Old Trafford community is to back the manager. That is the go-to choice, and so you see a lot of match-going Reds talking about we should stick with him. That's the kind of, there is that instinct, and I look at it and go, I mean, I don't know, because this feels like the thing that I talk about all the time, which is we see such a fraction of what's happening. We have no idea. Rashford, who we'll come to, is a perfect example of this. Rashford spent the whole season being absolutely hammered by everyone for not working hard off the ball, and yet he's picked every week by the manager, and we know that players are given instructions not to press, to save their energy, to let everyone else do the pressing, and then so it's like, how do we know that the manager isn't telling Marcus Rashford, don't be chasing back every ball, we need you to be ready to go when
I think he absolutely is. I think that's very much part of the plan this season, to get it direct to Rashford and Garnacho. Yeah. With McTominay, I was just looking up while you were talking, 11 accurate passes in the final, which kind of comes to the point, really. Just basically not involved at all. Yeah. And that's the big weakness of him. I think if he's part of a squad for moments, all right.
Yeah.
Again, a bit like
special teams again.
A bit like Dalot, yeah. I would, if there's a list of positions to upgrade, definitely 2 midfielders is going to be part of that, but it doesn't have to involve him being binned off. Yeah. Someone I definitely think should be binned off, and I say this
with love,
Casemiro, if you're listening, with love and affection. Your chubby cheeks are still perfect, and everything you did between August and February in your first season at United was fantastic. But
it's probably a bit long. Contract's probably just a little bit long. Stretched a little bit beyond February of his first season, didn't it? That contract.
Yeah, and it was the thing I was very worried about when he joined, because I felt he was in physical decline prior to him joining. It seemed obvious that he wasn't moving as much in that Real Madrid midfield. I mean, it was hard, a little bit hard with to tell, because obviously they had Kroos and Modric, who are 97 and 96 respectively, but still the 2 greatest passers in the world. Still, aged 97 and 96. So it's a little bit hard to say exactly, because his role became slightly different at United. But I felt like he wasn't quite there physically. And he came to United, played a huge amount of games, and just the decline has been tremendous physically, and he just can't. And allied to the giant donut and midfield and this, chaos ball back and forth that Ten Hag played for 75% of the season, it's an awful fit. I think if you had Casemiro playing the Amrabat role in the cup final, I actually don't think he's quite as good as that. Just being like really disciplined. And just playing 5-yard balls. But he'd have looked a lot better this season. Again, less space to cover, less physically demanding, do one job, do it well, and all of that. But it would be very sensible if United could find a buyer. And unfortunately, given his wages, it's probably a very, very or no fee. And there will be an impairment write-off of some kind in the accounts because we paid a huge amount of money for him. But that would be the most sensible thing.
Yeah, that semi-final, that was real bad. And yeah, it's he's an all-timer, and Casemiro, and he's definitely one of the best midfields ever. That three, but yes, you're right. Like August to February, and then everything since.
Not good. Yeah. So United. I mean, if we're saying Bruno and Kobbie Mainoo are definitely part of this team,
I'm saying
manager and I'm saying that. Yeah. And we'll get on to Bruno in a second. It's like who compliments them best. I think it's a big hard bastard. Like specialist defensive midfielder, and I would pay a huge amount of money for it. I don't actually know who the right one is. Devil's DNA. Devil's DNA, is it? Twitter handle does all the tactical stuff. He did a great breakdown of a whole bunch of options a few months back. Go find his Twitter handle. I think it's really, really good, deep analysis. He looked at all the players and stuff like that. So there are options out there, but I would spend a massive amount of money on that player if that's what it took.
15 years. 15 years. Of this podcast.
We've been talking about this.
Has there ever been a point in the last 15 years, apart from August to February last season, where we wouldn't have said I would spend the entire transfer budget on a really good defensive midfielder?
Yeah,
they just don't. They just hardly exist, and the ones that exist get snapped up by the biggest teams. And I mean, Jude Bellingham is obviously not that player, but that's United tried to move heaven and earth to sign Jude Bellingham.
Yeah, Moises Caicedo might have been though, and United didn't appear to be. I mean, Chelsea obviously paid a ridiculous amount of money, and he was quite poor for 75% of the season, but was great in the last couple of months. So obviously that there are options out there, and I'd spend the money. I think United dropping 100 million on that player last summer instead of Casemiro the summer before, and then Mount last summer, which is 100 and bit.
Sure.
It was a poor choice, but then again, we don't need to relitigate how bad United's transfer policy has been for a decade.
I mean, I would 100% have forgotten to mention Mason Mount in the roundup of United's midfielders this season if you hadn't just said that.
And I still don't understand the point of him. Not that he isn't a good, neat and tidy player and does some nice things when he's fit. I mean, he's been very unlucky that he hasn't been fit most of the season, but I couldn't work out where he was supposed to play in this team, playing the way that we play.
It's the backup. Like, how are we signing a backup to Bruno? Like, that's what it felt like, right?
But Bruno plays every single game.
Exactly. And there's no like-for-like replacement for Bruno anywhere in the world. Like, he's, to quote you, he's not a foot on the ball number 10. Mason Mount isn't a foot. He's not exactly a foot on the ball number 10, because I think you just mean 2012 Juan Mata and Roman Riquelme when you talk about that. But it always felt like a super weird signing, and he seemed like a good lad. That's Mason Mount seems like a good lad, and any good lads. I mean, listen. Maybe he'll turn out not to be, but any good lads United could possibly sign would be such a relief. But to drop that kind of money, I mean, it's like it's like they're trying to do the Van Persie trick again, right? We didn't need to sign Robin Van Persie, but he was available, and Fergie was like, "Yeah, obviously, that sounds fun." And you can get away with that if you're Fergie. And actually, Van Persie, it turns out, was the missing piece of the puzzle to win us another league title. But it feels like they've been trying to do that again, and like signing Mata because he was available from Chelsea, signing Mount because he was available from Chelsea. These are just, they're like signings of opportunity, but they also, it's not like they were bargains, So it's very strange.
No, very, very odd. Okay, rest of the central midfield. It's Bruno. Is there anyone we're
Eriksen?
missing? Yeah. Eriksen. Yeah, good lad. Apparently still got a contract till 2025. I really thought it was 24, right, but we got another year.
He's not going to play much at all, is he?
He won't play at all. And reports say, let's take these reports say with a very large pinch of salt, that maybe Ajax are interested in taking him back there, which would be a good move for him, good move for the club. He's on a really big wage, so that'll be an interesting one, whether they can come to a deal on that last year of his contract. But yeah, I think that would be sensible. Loved him for much of last season. Clearly, he's not quite physically up to it. But in moments this season, he's been good.
Yeah.
It's Christian Eriksen. He's a very good player, but physically, not quite up to it. All right, Bruno, 38 goals and assists this season, and he's been absolutely rubbish, apparently. Rubbish, I tell you. He can't play football. Bin him off straight away. I legitimately don't understand where this online hate comes from. I don't understand.
Well, I do. I do understand. I do understand. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I do understand why it exists, and it exists because of the style in which it is done. Right, like it is the throw so much at the wall that eventually stuff. I mean,
happens,
that no look pass. I mean, the shot, which I'm sure everyone has seen by now that did the round of socials, of the cameraman being, to quote my friend Rich, sent to the shops. Like that's like that you don't often see a cameraman sent to the shops by a no-look pass, but the camera is following the ball, and when the pass goes, briefly the camera goes the wrong way and then goes back, which is just like, I mean, that is how you would shoot it if you were directing this. It's so perfect. And that no-look pass is a kind of such a complete summation of him, because he has because you watch the post-match analysis of that on the BBC, and they showed you his vision cone and how, like, the reason that he made that pass is because he did the Paul Scholes head flick over and over again to see what was going on. And you'd think that was very basic, but we know so many players don't do that.
Yeah.
And
Scan.
Yeah, and it's such an asset. I mean, he will also, he shot from basically inside his own half because the keeper was fractionally off his line in that game, ceding possession to City for absolutely no reason whatsoever.
Mad.
Yeah, I mean,
Mad.
He is a truly extraordinary player, and he's a complete, in an age where there is a kind of like prototype for lots of positions. Bruno isn't part of a prototype. He is a throwback to a more civilized age or whatever. What's the line that Obi-Wan says about the blasters, about the lightsabers?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the hate comes from his sheer unreliability and the amount of times he does something mad and it doesn't work. But 38 goals and assists in a terrible team, and I know this is PR, but that Players Tribune thing on the night before the cup final, I think that moved the needle on the feeling in the ground. I think that was extremely well timed. I think it was extremely well pitched, and obviously, I guess that looks a lot different if we don't then win the next day. But that was a deliberate attempt to cultivate an atmosphere. And that atmosphere certainly existed. I'm not saying that was the only piece of that puzzle, but I think it was a piece. And that's another kind of massive intangible that Bruno brings to the party.
No Bruno, no party. As far as I'm concerned, he is absolutely central to whatever United do and whatever the next manager wants to do. I just think back to Ralph Rangnick. He dropped him and then shifted him out to the left I mean, this was Ralph Ragnick. He was like the most creative player in the squad. Yeah, I'm going to marginalize him as much as I possibly can. Madness. Yeah. I know he moans, and I know he does some shithousery. Not as much as Scott McTominay, actually. When he came off yesterday, I was like, yes, Scott, yes. Took 75 minutes to leave the pitch. Good on you.
I think Kyle Walker tried to start on Martinez. Like,
I know.
Why would you try and start on Martinez? Like, that doesn't seem smart to me at all.
I did have to childish, but I did chuckle quite a lot at alternative MUFC commentary piece he does, and the one he did on a cup final. The line was, "Don't let him touch you. Anything Kyle Walker touches gets pregnant." I was like, "Oh, ouch."
You absolutely love Route One, don't you? Like you like your football sophisticated and interesting and intricate, but your comedy, absolute Route One.
Oh no, I like sophisticated comedy too, but I'm here for the Route One stuff. Yeah, it's perfect. Yes, don't start him. Don't. Why would you? Yeah. Anyway, Bruno, fantastic. He was Fans Player of the Year. I guess if you read a lot of Twitter like I do, and I'm in a Twitter bubble, you wouldn't believe it because the hate is significant.
Yeah, that's also what I was going to say. I just think it's complete illusion, and I think he won Fans Player of the Year. That's how United fans feel about Bruno. It's the and being on the outside. So I haven't got a Twitter account of any kind, which means you just can't use the platform without. And you used to be able to not be logged in and just look at stuff and look at threads and things like that. But now if someone sends you a link to a tweet, which is a reply, you can't even see what it's a reply to without having an account and logging in and all that kind of stuff. And for very obvious reasons, I have absolutely, I didn't want to be part of Twitter when it was like, all right, definitely don't want to be part of it. Now it's what it is. But it is also a complete amplifier of, this is one of its actual problems in actual life. It's an amplifier of negativity in a very, very intense way.
Yes, and it's designed to be so. Yeah. It's interesting because I have a very curated follow list, which is entirely football. Now, there are some, obviously you can't curate it to 99%, but I think that is the only way to use Twitter. But it does mean I'm in a certain bubble as a result, deliberately so I don't have to deal with a lot of the toxicity and negativity. And I use as people have pointed out many times over the years. I liberally use the block and the mute button.
Used to be. So. There are people that don't know this because there are people that have started to listen to this podcast since I was last on it. But that used to be my job. I had 3 jobs. I was a psychotherapist, I was a football writer, and I would message Ed and say, "Oh, this person's asked if you can unblock them." And I've looked at what they originally did because I would always do that. I would always act as a filter layer. If what they did seemed bad, I'd be like, "No, I'm not going to ask him to unblock you. It's completely reasonable." If I could not work out for the life of me why you decided to block them, I'd be like, "Oh, I think this one's okay to unblock."
Yeah, I did accidentally block you once, though. And I think I was probably half asleep, and it was just an automatism,
like a subconscious. By that point, had enough of what I had to say.
Anyway, I'm glad my robo clicker worked on the Fans Player of the Year on Bruno because I voted 9 million times. Yeah.
I think Manu should have won an award. I don't know. Did he win Young Player of the Season? I guess not because they don't have.
No, he didn't. Ethan Wheatley
did. They don't have a senior team Young Player of the Season award, do they? I would have had him over Bruno in Fans Player, because mostly because I'm just staggeringly impressed, and it doesn't make sense over the course of the whole season because he didn't come into the side till. And he did have periods where he looked like leggy and tired and all those things, as you would expect for a teenager who I'm sure none of the plan was, you play every minute of every game. Well, not every minute. That was a significant issue, right? Because Ten Hag had to pick him, but he clearly also needed to make sure he was only playing 60 minutes some of the time for developmental reasons. And United would then completely capitulate after he came off the pitch.
so often
happened a lot, right?
So he brings a level of like authority, calmness, tactical awareness, as with Bruno, scans constantly, knows what's around him. His half touch first touch takes it away from the opposition player. He's incredibly press resistant. As we'll talk about, he scores some fantastic goals. He can play at 6 or 8. He can probably play further forwards and be outstanding. He's an outstanding young footballer. And really, I hope he doesn't burn out, because obviously he's, I don't know exactly what Gareth Southgate's plan is, but he's going to go to the Euros. He's going to have 3 weeks off, and then he'll be come into the pre-season tour late. And, all of that and he's played a lot of football since October, and all of that points to risks and red zone and all of that kind of stuff, So I hope he doesn't burn out, but if we get the right balance with him, he's going to be a fantastic player for United. All right, onto the forwards.
Oh, we've got to pick one, though, right? We've got to pick a midfielder.
Oh, well, for me, it's Bruno, because if you were counting him as, I know he played as sort of forward in the cup final, sort of. Not really, but sort of. But for me, it's Bruno, just because United would be we'd be 12th or 15th or something without Bruno. If he'd been injured, and he's like the only player that didn't get injured, something like that.
So, okay, this is about Bruno again. I know you properly love Bruno, and I get it. And I also am very fond of him. But what do you think to the argument of he's part of the reason? He's not just the reason we're not 13th. He's also his kind of limitations and weaknesses as a player are part of the reason we're not a more effective unit overall, because he's kind of a bit too much of a wild card to make a system work. I mean, I feel like that argument doesn't stack up well because of the players around him. But
I don't think. Well, it also, one of the other reasons I'm not sure it stacks up well is he can play in a more limited fashion, right? He can drop back to 8, or he's playing a double 8 occasionally this season, where he's been a bit more conservative and not going for the final killer pass every single time. So he can certainly do that, but why would you, right? When you create as many chances as he does, you accept that's the way you're going to play. Now, it doesn't mean that has to be chaos ball. It wasn't chaos ball under Ollie, when he scored 28 goals and 15 assists or whatever it was that one season. It doesn't have to be like that.
A little bit chaos ball under Ollie.
A little bit chaos, little bit. But
it wasn't
donut
chaos ball, was it? It wasn't the kind of complete bizarre. I mean, do you remember that West Brom game that we went to at the Hawthorns, when you said, "Look, there's just there's just a big circle where Fellaini dropped in, and Welbeck scored."
Yeah. So I mean, of course, if you want a completely possession dominant side, you might have to play him in a different way. I mean, Kevin De Bruyne, probably physically stronger than Bruno. Right. Kevin De Bruyne, I guess. But he's a player who creates a lot of chances, but plays and actually has a pass completion rate of about 70%.
Yeah, there you go.
By the way, but can play in a much more possession dominant side. So there are tweaks. Maybe the next coach, if it's not Ten Hag and it's a very different profile, might look to evolve him out of the side at some point. But for the moment, he's definitely not United's biggest problem, and he's a major plus point. Yeah. So, yeah.
All right. I mean, okay. I think it is reasonable, even though, I mean, how is Cobby not getting?
How you voting?
Yeah, how is he not getting all of the awards for everything?
Yeah, goalkeeper of the year, goalkeeper money. Yeah. Forwards, we got Rashford, Anthony, Højlund, Ahmad, Martial.
Oh, come on, don't hurt me.
He did play at some points. Garnacho. All right. So it's a mixed bag, and no one perfect in this.
It sure is a mixed bag. Most of those individuals. Having an incredible mixed bag. I mean, Marcus Rashford scored one of the best goals I've ever seen in my life this season. And, I can't bring myself to break down Marcus Rashford's season, because I think it is too sad. And when he broke down in tears after the FA Cup final, it's like that, I feel like it is an enormous disservice in a way to analyse Marcus Rashford's. I know this is a strange thing to say. it feels an enormous disservice to analyse Marcus Rashford's performances, because to me, Marcus Rashford's performances they feel like the tip of a gigantic iceberg watching it from a distance. I don't know anything, but that's what it looks like.
I don't know what it is that has, what professionally, personally, that has caused some of the drop off. I don't subscribe to the analysis that the problem with him is that he's not working hard enough defensively. I'm sure. I mean, he's not the best presser in the world, but I'm sure if he was asked to play in a traditional sort of left-sided, get up and down the pitch type role, which very few forwards of that ilk are these days, he would do the defensive work. So I don't think that's the issue. I don't know why his performance levels have dropped off, because clearly they've dropped off a huge amount. He spends a lot of time running at players and then sort of losing the ball, which is also part of his role. He's there to cause an impact, right? So, and the amount of dribbles, the amount of times he's able to take on a player, there's a strong correlation between his success rate there and how many goals United score, right? Or he either creates or scores himself. So some of the tactical stuff hasn't worked in his favour in terms of like going, okay, here's his output. He changed this season. He wasn't asked to cut inside all the time. Clearly against City, he was asked to go wide to start with. It didn't work because he's against EPO's Kyle Walker, and allegedly.
Not allegedly, allegedly by you just now. You can't. That doesn't then not make it libelous.
I'm joking. I don't think Carl walks slander.
I was going to say. I was going to correct myself.
Broadcast. Yeah. Just for the record, I don't think Kyle Walker takes EPO. Clearly, it's something else. Yeah.
Yes,
So then he started coming inside, and look. So I think there's a tactical issue, but clearly there's something else off. He lost a cousin this year. I can't, begin to wonder how that's impacted him personally. I don't think earlier in his career he'd have gone out drinking for 2 nights in a row in Belfast, getting shit-faced and lying to the club about it.
More than anything else, I think this is the frustration with watching fan content a lot of the time and listening to fan content is and this doesn't apply to you, obviously, it's the lack of acknowledgement of what we don't know. That's the thing that more than anything strikes me. And the Rashford situation, I don't know. That's the whole point. I don't know. But my guess would be the main things that are going on with Marcus Rashford are things that we don't know about, that aren't in, that nobody knows about, that's out. Do you know what I mean? That just isn't. That's what it looks like from the outside. Could be completely wrong. Could just have developed a terrible attitude. That feels like a very long way from everything we've ever known about this kid. But we don't know. Yeah. We don't know what we don't know.
I hope he gets good rest over the summer and he's able to. He posted today saying he was going off socials, and thank you to everyone who supported him, and no thank you to the people who didn't. And we know who they are. And it's not to do with Marcus Rashford that I was kind of keen to change the name, but it is to do of the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But it is to do with that style of commentary.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a name that never made any sense, but we didn't think about it for 10 years.
Yeah. I hope he comes back stronger, has another 30-goal season. It's within his gift, for sure. I would not. I mean, there's an argument to say if you got a mega offer, it would suit the club and maybe even Marcus to move on.
Absolutely.
It's definitely a good argument for that. Yeah. And Head may even say that would be sensible. I actually think he's on such a big package that it's kind of impossible. There's only a few clubs on the planet that could afford him.
And they'd have to be very, very, very sure that they could get a different tune out of him than the last season. Because he's looked really, really bad a lot this season as well. And, like I said, I started this by saying I can't even bring myself to do a proper analysis because I can't think of a footballer maybe ever that I've felt as defensive about as Marcus Rashford.
All right, talking to footballers who've looked really, really bad, Anthony.
I'm not defensive of him at all. That's a very different story.
I mean, he's okay. I don't want to make it too personal, obviously, because given the conversation we just had, but he's not a very good footballer.
I mean, to me, Antony is the single biggest knock against Ten Hag in a way that you could almost say Martinez is like the biggest kind of plus in Ten Hag's column. There's like this guy, we need this guy, but the fact that he thought that could work. That is, and for that kind of money, I mean, it is so wasteful. I mean, and the club should never, ever, ever be like backing the manager with a decision like that. I know that's a crazy thing to say,
and they never will. No, they never will again. I mean, because the new structures come into place. So if reports are true, and I think the Athletic reported this, and they are pretty conservative with how they report. The United analytical team put a figure of 25 million euros that they thought he was worth as part of their long list of scouting and diligence and stuff like that. And United paid nearly 4 times that much. And it's to do with timing and circumstances and being held over a barrel by Edwin van der Sar. The United hero that is Edwin van der Sar absolutely dry humped us on that fee, but he was working for his club, and he did the right thing and he got a fantastic price, and United were very foolish to back the manager on that one. They should have said no.
Absolutely. Because there's just, I mean, I remember when, I mean, this is as rudimentary as it gets, but seeing the transfer fee, looking up how many goals and assists he'd got in the Eredivisie and being like, what is going on here? Because it's this thing that I think I might have talked about this last time I was on the podcast even, or definitely in the awards last season. The Memphis Depay comp of all the goals. Remember the season before he came to United, he scored like 25 goals or something for PSV, and an assist as well, or several assists as well. And you watched the comp and you were like, well, he's scoring 5 of these in the Prem. Like it's, really the scale of difference of quality of defending and quality of goalkeeping, those kinds of things. It is orders of magnitude. There are obviously amazing players in the Dutch league, and there are some feats in the Dutch league which translate really well, like Ruud van Nistelrooy, for example. But to not be scoring or assisting in volume, playing for championship winning Ajax side as an attacker, to be signed to fill a massive gap in United's attack for 80 million quid. I mean, that's one. It's one of the worst transfers ever. I mean, it's Bebe levels because of the price.
And Bebe didn't cost very much.
I mean, relatively, I mean, he's not. He's better than Bebe, probably.
I don't know. Should we look at his games to goal ratio? I mean, I think Bebe 5-6 goals to me. Sure. Bebe. Still, remarkable. Just while we're on Bebe. He's coming towards the end. I can't remember where he's playing now. He's playing for one of the Portuguese sides, I think. He spent a lot of time in Spain, playing for Rayo Vallecano and others, and just had this remarkable ability to bang one in from extraordinarily long ranges. Like 15 times before he did that, there's one in the stands.
Yeah, sure. But the one that goes in looks real good. I mean...
and I guess Anthony's done that. He's scored a couple of very good goals this season.
One particularly crucial one, right? Like that's, his goal against Liverpool, utterly vital. I mean, we didn't talk about it when we talked about Rashford, but I feel like Rashford's United career was sort of summed up by the miss and then the goal in that Liverpool game. Which, that was game of the season, wasn't it? Or what
Well, an extraordinary cup game,
just
performance, comeback. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the reasons why, of course, I understand why fans get wrapped up in winning a cup game. If you put your analytical head on, you should say, hey, if United had won that game 2-1 or lost it 2-1, it shouldn't make any difference to our analysis of the season. And it shouldn't really. But of course, those moments are what fandom's about.
Winning the FA Cup is an absolutely massive thing. Johnny Evans.
Yeah,
that's like him. That's he did the Carrick Rooney 2016 thing, right? He'd won all the rest of it, and he wasn't there for that, so he'd missed that one. So now he's got the complete set, and the FA Cup is a big one.
It all. Yeah. I'd been off Anthony for whatever money we can get. I mean, again, it's a problem because the transfer fee means United amortize a huge amount each year. It's like actually worth it to just get it off the books, because United wouldn't get a fee that was big enough to not take an impairment in the accounts. But whatever, it's just like whatever you can get. If you could get anything, you can surely bring it back. And look, another player who's barely featured this season because Anthony's featured a lot is Amad Diallo, and not perfect player by any means. He's got a lot. He's had to do a lot of development, but I mean, he's got a banger of a goal. 2 weeks ago? Put in some very solid performances in the 4 games he's had for the club, or whatever it's been. Yeah,
he's got something, hasn't he? Like
it's got something. It couldn't. I literally don't think it could be worse if you played him for 30 games instead of Anthony.
No.
So, who else?
Well, I'd be interested in your take on Højlund. I mean, he obviously had a tough start, although he'd scored the Champions League goals. There was all the fuss around him not scoring in the league. Then when he started scoring, went off like a freight train, got injured, and then it sort of dried up again. But he's a talent, and he's
a talent, and then got a couple of really good goals towards the end of the season before Ten Hag decided to sort of practice his cup final formation. Look, I think it's pretty good. If you look down the list of under 21s players who've scored goals in the top 5 leagues in Europe, he's right up there. I don't think he's number 1. He's like 2, second or third, right? So at this stage of his development, it's actually a pretty good performance. He came to the club injured, then he got injured again, lost his momentum. He's got some pretty good goals. He's got a good range of goals. He's got tap-ins. He's got left foot, right foot. He's got ones where who was it against West Ham the other week where he took on 2 players and then scored across the keeper. He doesn't get enough shots, and that's partly to do with the system. We don't get it into him enough. We've got wide players. We go direct to, then cut inside. So get him the ball more often, and he looks like he's got the talent to get the 20 plus goals this season.
I mean, I thought Andy Cole on the Sticks Football podcast, which is so good. It's way better than I thought it was going to be. That podcast is, it's just excellent. But he talked about how when he watches Højlund, he sees him getting involved with the defenders a lot, and he just should stop doing that. He should stop trying to win physical tussles with the defenders to show he's stronger, because you don't need to be stronger than the defender in that way in 21st century football. And I thought it was a really interesting note. And then I watched in the cup final when he came on, he was actually kind of doing that. Although I think doing that to Guardiola after what Guardiola did in the first half, probably not the worst idea. And talking of which, I guess we should talk about, I guess the shoe-in for attacking player of the year, right, is Alejandro Garnacho. I mean,
for sure. I thought you were going to mention your boy Anthony Martial for a second.
I mean, the player of the year in my heart every year, obviously.
Sure. Yeah. He posted today saying he's leaving the club. Oh, big shock.
The thing about that's really, I mean, it was lovely when he got when everyone was singing his song at the Stretford End, because there were some absolutely brilliant moments in the early days, and it really feels to me like Martial is someone whose career was ruined by being spent at United. Like that. I mean, if he had signed for Madrid or Barca or whoever instead of United, I suspect he would have had a radically different career than he had, because the talent was never. I mean, and I just never bought the application thing. It just doesn't. But Mourinho being the manager in his second or third season or whatever it was at United for 3 years of absolutely pivotal development time. I mean, no.
Yeah, same argument could be made about Marcus Rashford
100%
in terms of his development.
100%.
Martial, higher talent, ceiling of talent that as you could get over the last 10 years. A massive talent. Didn't trust his own body more than the supposed lack of application. I think he just didn't trust his own body. I mean, he's been training for weeks. Ten Hag even said he'll decide when he's fit. So apparently he wasn't fit ever. So it's a super shame for him. Don't know what he'll do next. I hope he has a couple of good seasons before the end of his career. It'd be
definitely.
nice.
You hope he doesn't do the De Gea thing of just not having a club, because I feel very sad every time I think about the fact that David De Gea hasn't got a club. It's so strange.
I mean, clearly he should have a club. He could have a club. He just has to decide how much he wants to get paid. I mean, he's got paid 0 this year. And what level he wants to play at. I suspect that's more important with Dave. He doesn't want to join a mid-rank club because he's better than that.
So we said we weren't going to go through every single player individually, but we have.
But we did.
That brings us to late in the day. Alejandro Garnacho. I mean, I don't know. We're going to talk about goal of the season, but I mean, there were also some other good goals this season, but come on, we know what goal of the season was.
It's funny. I feel like we've done this every season. We won't talk about every single player, but
I don't know why you always say we won't, and then you literally go through every single player.
Every single year. It's like the time I said, "Hey, we're not going to go through every single team in the World Cup," and then 4.5 hours of podcast later,
Gary Lineker listened to that episode. No wonder he never came back and listened to another one. It's like, that is too long. That is too long to make someone listen to the first episode.
I like Gary very much. I really do, as a personality and a commentator, and he gave us his seats at the Cup final once, and all of that. Didn't like his interview with Eric Ten Hag at all. I thought that was a mistake.
Well, I think it was Shearer that went for him, right?
It was really Shearer, yeah, and just be disrespectful.
I agree.
Man's just won an FA Cup, the FA Cup, and you want to badger him over his job? Come on, give it a day. Anyway, the last I'll say on that one, Garnacho has a brilliant season. I mean, the lad, he works so hard. So hard. He runs and he runs and he runs, and he doesn't make all the right decisions, for sure. And he's definitely going to, if he's coached right to get into the right positions at the right time, he's going to score a lot of goals because his finishing is very good. Hit and miss, of course. He's 20 years old or whatever, 19, 20. So he's not the perfect forward, but I think we know where the ceiling is with him. It's very, very high. If he stays fit most of the time, and
that's super interesting though, because I think this time last year we would have said that it would almost be the exact thing that we would have said was we don't know where the ceiling is, right? Like, is he kind of Adnan Januzaj, looking pretty impressive and bubbling up, but this season it's like, no, the sky's the limit, right? Like he's
guy's very good, and it's just like, is he going to get? Because I think it's 15 goals and 5 assists, or 10, whatever. I'm butchering the stats. Maybe it's 10 goals and 5 assists, which is not enough for his talent. I think he can double that for sure. And depends on tactics and where he plays, but it looks like he can play left or right, and it doesn't impact his the quality of what he does at all. Dan called him a street fighter. He gambled on that with Guardiola. He that's the kind of goal you get where you go and go and go and go. Yeah. Love him. I think there's a real player there. No doubts about his attitude until Real Madrid start pestering his agent and we start getting the stories.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been very fun to watch him, and he obviously did a thing that you look at and just, it makes you almost cry. Like, it's just art. Football at that level, it's like, that's why this sport is so transcendent. I mean, we joked a lot about cricket in the last few years, but when Jimmy Anderson bowls an outswinger and it catches the outside edge, and in the third over or whatever, when the ball's moving around, it's beautiful. It's one of the amazing things about it. A football, when people do these things, it is like, these are the things that make the experience of life so fantastic. Like, life can be really hard, right? And these moments give everyone who cares about them life. It's why, when people are sniffy about sport, like, oh, you care about sport, do you? It's like, well, you're not clever for not liking sport. You're missing something absolutely amazing where humans do this incredible stuff. And that Garnacho goal was really under the heading of humans doing incredible stuff. It was lovely.
All right. Well, that's a good segue into goal of the season. We'll come on to manager of the season in a bit. I mean, there were some genuine bangers. I was looking at some comps that the United official account put out. It's list of 10, and there were a few others. I was just checking on, make sure I got them. But let's go through a few of the others before we award it to Alejandro.
Bruno against Liverpool.
Bruno against Liverpool, where he hit that kind of flat one with the outside of his foot over Kelleher.
That's the most Bruno goal of the season, isn't it?
It's Tiger Woods playing a 5-iron into the 18th at Augusta or something. I mean, I don't know where that comes from. A brilliant goal. Also, Bruno, Johnny Evans with one of the assists of the season, chipped over the defence of the corner of the box against Burnley, and Bruno, first time volley into the corner early in the season. just fantastic finish, fantastic. There's a whole list of Kobbie Mainoo goals. His first for the club, where he makes the Wolves defender. He said in an interview recently, once I saw the Meg was on, I knew there was a goal in this or something like that.
See,
right?
see, this is why we should not be giving awards to other people.
Like you're talking about Star Wars, he's definitely on the light side of the Force, but he also knows what's going to happen. There's Jedi instincts in there.
Yeah.
Makes him, beats two players, brilliant goal. There's the goal he scores against Liverpool. Left foot control, turn, just passes it into the top corner. Like, that's what you do.
I mean, the Ahmad goal against Liverpool, that finish, literally, that's the only way that goal could possibly have gone in. The pass from Garnacho is not a good pass. It's, he's the move's over and he somehow threads the needle. I mean, that was a goal scored as much by destiny as by Amad Diallo, I think.
It brings back memories of Cantona versus Liverpool in the 96 Cup final, right?
Oh, a goal scored by
only
destiny.
One spot. Like,
I watched that goal so many times in the lead up to the FA Cup final.
Kobbie Mainoo's goal in the Cup final. I've watched that goal like 100 times now.
Awesome.
It's just a piece of art. It's all. Obviously, the finish. You'd expect any player to finish that.
That's not the point, is it?
He just strokes it in.
It's a perfect goal. The no-look pass is, every bit of the build-up's magical. The no-look pass is completely elite, next level, magical, incredible. A wicked goal. The Toon goal in the Women's FA Cup finals, absolutely fantastic. It loses a couple of marks for aesthetics just because the defending was so atrocious, but she actually made the defending worse. The drop of the shoulder that sells the player is a huge part of it. And the backlift, that's a goal I've watched so many times as well. The backlift for the shot is so, like you mentioned, golf club. It's such a kind of golf swing backlift. It's just really perfect. And, women's football has a different aesthetic to men's football. And that was just like absolutely elite women's football aesthetic goal. So fantastic.
Marcus Rashford spanking one into the top bins against City.
It's crazy. That goal was crazy.
It's amazing. He scored 2 goals against City this year. They're basically pure Route 1. I mean, Dallo just punting it down the middle for Garnacho's goal, and I can't remember who punted it long, but it's controlled and passed back to Marcus. Anger, pure anger. You haven't had that much anger in a goal hit into the top corner since Wayne Rooney versus Newcastle in
2005.
2005.
Yeah, brilliant. All right, well done to all of those people for scoring those excellent goals that were not as good as Alejandro Garnacho's goal against Everton.
Still just perfect. And even better for being just the top of the boot, not the shin. Close to the shin. Close to the shin.
The real thing that makes it better is the aesthetic on the pass, because Nani's ball for Rooney just cannons and flies up off the. I mean, nobody should ever say anything bad about that Rooney goal, which is just an unbelievable piece of magic. Even if it was off his shin, it was a magic bit of shinning. And he does use his foot. He completely uses his foot to guide the ball. So the shin is what gives the ball its power, but the top of the foot is what gives the ball its direction on the Rooney one. But this was just amazing. I mean, it's just amazing. It's just boys' own stuff. Also, the context of that game. Everyone thought Everton were going to win that game because it was just after the points deduction thing and all that stuff. And it was all that kind of, oh, they're going to come to our patch and we're going to show them what we're all about. No, Alejandro Garnacho is going to score a legitimate Premier League all-timer. So, bro.
All right. I guess we're supposed to pick a forward of the season.
Garnacho,
I mean, it's Garnacho. All right. Manager of the season.
I don't think we give an award for manager of the season, Ed, traditionally.
No. There's so much progress last season with Eric, and given the bin fire that he picked up. And we all felt very good about it. I think Dan and I especially spent a lot of last season wondering what the end state looked like. What was he progressing towards? And he said weird things like, oh, no, can never play like Ajax, which was a very heavily possession dominant side, 60% possession and so on. And but he didn't exactly play transitional football. But anyway, it's like It was a trophy. It was a cup final. It was third place. It felt like more progress than we expected, maybe after the disaster under Rangnick. And then this season, and I take all the arguments about adversity and injuries and stuff like that, and I don't even know if the way United play and the way United trainers contributed to that. Might do. I certainly heard people talking about that, who said, yeah, people in the club are not very happy about it. But it's the kind of doubling down on the plan B that most definitely didn't work, which is the biggest black mark against him for me. He came up with plan B. He said, hey, I can't play the way I want to because the players I want are injured. Fair comment. But it didn't work. And it didn't work again and again and again and again. In fact, 19 defeats in all competitions tells you it really, 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 really didn't work. And he just did it again and again and again until the last 3 games of the season, where he came up with a different plan.
We finished
worked.
8th, and he had negative goal difference. And he won the FA...
14 defeats in the league.
FA Cup, which is brilliant. Winning the FA Cup is brilliant. But winning the FA Cup is the thing you least need a manager for. That is the thing that getting yourself up. I mean, we literally beat Liverpool and City in this. We nearly blew the semi-final against a very, very average Championship team because of how bad the vibes are off. How fragile the confidence was. And the in-game management. That game fell apart. As soon as Coventry scored, we all knew. I was watching it with 2 people that don't watch a lot of football, and they were saying, what are United doing after the goal? And I was like, they have to keep the ball now and just try and settle everything, because they cannot let the game state shift and the Coventry crowd get super up for it, because they're so kind of fragile and vulnerable that it's all going to fall apart. And Ten Hag made the substitutions that don't work every game in that game. Now, he got the final absolutely right. But how much credit do you get for being I probably need to pack the midfield against City and play 2 lads that can hit them on the break? The only credit you get for that is not doing the mind-bogglingly stubborn thing of doing the same bad thing that you've done over and over again in this game. That's a very kind of slow golf clap. Well done for getting that one right. I mean, I think the job has been bigger than he expected. I mentioned Musa earlier, but the thing that I always remember, when Moyes got sacked, we recorded at the end of that season, we recorded with a whole bunch of different people. And I remember Musa saying that it felt like Moyes tried to shrink the club around him. That's how he didn't grow into the job. He tried to shrink the club around him. Mourinho did the Sevilla football heritage thing, tried to, that's one of his worst crimes as United manager. It's and it feels like a lot this season, Ten Hag has felt like in the post-match press conferences, which are a difficult thing and they don't make a lot of sense in lots of ways anyway, but he's basically said, no, it was actually good. It's it definitely wasn't good, Eric. No measure of this was good. Nothing about this was good.
Yeah. A lot of Chemical Alley vibes going on until the last 3 weeks of the season when he's come out punching. And fans like this, right? Fans do like the punch. I liked it. I kind of enjoyed his performance. I think a lot... there's more about his press conferences than... last season, he was kind of perfunctory. He doesn't say a lot. He doesn't give away a lot of details. He has this thing where he doesn't like to talk about injured players at all. They're just ill, which is a little bit odd. And this season, he's increasingly got a bit incoherent. So defending stuff that was crap, because there was some part of it he liked, I guess, at some point. But it didn't pass the smell test, did it? And then comes out fighting at the end of the season where it just feels too late. And it just felt like pure fan service at that point. Or he's just been super defensive because he knows his job is on the line. He's sick of getting challenged. But there were times this season where we've had atrocious VAR decisions and he's just left it. And everyone's going, yeah, but Arteta, Guardiola and Klopp put pressure on refs. And it's a really seedy side of the game that we end up doing that. But there was Eric meekly taking it. And not fighting for the club, So
there's I mean, I've never warmed to him. This is irrelevant. I'm not. So that doesn't mean you should sack. You should sack him.
But it's hard to warm to him because he's got zero charisma as well.
Yeah,
right?
and the thing that is sort of a bit relevant about that is, I mean, and there are lots of United fans who have warmed to him. And again, this is that Old Trafford community. There is the relationship between, and he has a kind of natural defiance, which goes well with United's kind of inherent tendency to, well, not even inherent, but like Fergie built tendency to a siege mentality.
Yeah, sure.
Which kind of makes sense. But the fact that he doesn't have an obvious charisma and his tactical mind isn't anything to write home about, it doesn't appear to be. And he got very stubborn about his mistakes, and he kept making the same mistakes over and over again in substitutions. And we've had the worst season that we've had since 1988 or something like that. When did we last finish? Eighth? Like I can't remember. It's a very, very
89.
Right, there you go. So like that is a very, very, very bad combination. And I understand I understand very much people who are like, yeah, he won the League Cup in his first season. We finished third, and then we won the FA Cup in the second season, and he's had these kind of like staggering levels of injuries, and the squad is a kind of mishmash, whatever. You should give him another go round, which I actually don't think is mad. I don't think that's a crazy position to take. But you've got the kind of all these moving pieces in the manager market. The thing that really confuses me is out of all these moving pieces in the manager market, none of them are an obvious slam dunk. Tuchel is the closest to a slam dunk, who is not a slam dunk in any way.
No, that's right. Yeah. I actually think the strongest mitigation he's had this season around injuries is also one of the biggest criticisms, and that I have of him. It's not that he caused the injuries. I don't know that. It's that it exposed the weaknesses. He did not have plan B, plan C. He didn't have he just didn't. He didn't. You don't lose that 19 games this season when you can work out a way of not losing and picking up more points. I wouldn't have liked it if he'd played in the way we did against Arsenal, Newcastle, City, in a much more compact, conservative way. It doesn't mean you have to have 26% possession in every game. That's clearly not going to happen. I wouldn't have liked it if he'd been much more conservative, but we'd got a hell of a lot more points. And he could have said legitimately, "Hey, look, a lot of injuries. We just had to find a way of getting some points, right?" And you go, "Okay,
and, when I was last on the show, which was Christmas time, I said they should sack him and replace him with Solskjaer. Solskjaer would get more points between now and the end of the season." And I was a little bit joking, but that is definitely also true.
Definitely true.
What you do now, people like a number of people have asked me online and stuff like, "Would you get rid of Ten Hag?" And my answer is always now. I don't know, because I don't have to have an opinion about these things anymore, which is so nice. Because I don't know, because I don't know if United have been bad this season because Ten Hag isn't a good football manager, or because the injuries have been crazy, or because some clique in the dressing room has been causing like loads of disruption and discomfort, and it's all kind of weird and divided and all that kind of stuff. Like I don't know what's going on. From the outside looking in, it would appear that Ten Hag is doing a bad job at managing Manchester United. And I don't think, like you say, I think the fact that we, ultimately that game against Liverpool, we beat them on vibes. Like our vibes were right, their vibes are wrong. The City game, we beat them on vibes. Our vibes are right, their vibes are wrong. Guardiola did what he did. Bruno did his moment of magic when City carved United open. Haaland hit the bar and Alvarez shot just wide. And, it's a game of fine margins. Moments, and that's what cup games are decided on. The movie Moneyball. The whole thing about Moneyball is like, this is about kind of statistically doing the right thing to work in the long run. But the success that the A's have in that season is that they go on a unprecedented winning streak and win the most games in a row that anyone's ever won in the regular season, or for however long. I think it is the record. It was the record, which is like the antithesis of Moneyball. The point of Moneyball isn't that you go on a kind of freakish run. It's that you do the right things in the kind of broad sense, and you'll be more successful than you would otherwise have been in the aggregate. So this very much feels like this is the 20 game winning streak. Like, we got it right against City. We just about held on by the skin of our teeth against Coventry because they are so much worse in terms of level than United. And then we did something miraculous in the final when every single player was clearly entirely on the same page in a way that they should be every single game. And that's the thing that is the art of being a manager, right?
Yeah, and yeah. So, if I was grading him, it'd be about a 5 out of 10, right? And I like analytically, maybe even worse than that, and got it right in some cup games. And it's fantastic as a fan. In terms of the sort of dispassionate Ineos-led season review, they are not going to go, and wasn't that moment great? And I loved it. I don't think. And who knows? Like the reporting's all over the place on this one. And I think that's because people can't really see inside the head of Dave Brailsford, Jim Ratcliffe, Jean-Claude Blanc, Dan Ashworth, Omar Barada, right? These are the people who should not be all talking to each other, but most certainly are. Hopefully not in email form anymore. And it's at the service station at Sandbach on the M6, right?
Knutsford. I'd go Knutsford. I think that's a superior service station.
Yeah. All right. Important details. Fine margins. Yeah. Marginal gains. Marginal gains.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, and analytically terrible season. But even more than that, it's like, what do they see as their long-term plan? Because if Ten Hag fits into that long-term plan, they just need to give him a new contract. Because I think let's go into the last year of his contract with effectively a lame duck manager, a few defeats early on, that the warm fuzzy glow of winning the FA Cup is going to disappear really, really quickly, and we'll be into November, 7th, 8th in the table, few defeats, bad start in the Europa League, and he's going to get sacked.
Right? Yes, absolutely.
So either back him long term or you don't. You move on with a man that's the right one. And I'm kind of, as I said on Twitter this morning, I feel fairly ambivalent about that one. I don't have a strong feeling that this man should be. I don't hate him. I don't like, to be honest, his support of wife beaters and sex pests. Doesn't feel good, that one. Alleged wife beaters and sex pests. Well, Mark Overmars definitely not alleged. He most definitely did it. I don't like that side of things at all. But there's not much about managing United. I mean, it's a factor for sure. I don't suppose. Brexit Jim with his major oil refining plants that are some of the worst polluters in the country and in some of the worst regimes on the planet. I don't suppose that's going to be his first focus with Ten Hag. Do you like sex pests? I think it will be about the performance.
Yeah, and to me, I don't think I could say that I'm ambivalent about whether or not you should back Ten Hag in the long run. I could see the argument why you should. I just don't think you should. I think that argument is. Yeah. I think you've got to make a decision. Is this your guy? And I don't know why you would say the guy who's just finished 8th with negative goal difference, with some mitigation, some significant mitigation, but also who there's nothing about the way the team has performed where you can see who this guy is that would be a vision for the future. Arteta's first season at Arsenal was pretty disappointing, right? But they backed him because there was a vision for what you could see into the future. And they've come second in the league twice in a row, something that would have been like beyond their wildest dreams 3 years ago. And it was because they could see something in him. And to me, I don't know how you look at Ten Hag and go, yeah, I can see this is the guy that if we give the right kind of structure around, he's going to bring the thing. So, yeah.
Yes, I do tend to agree with that. Yeah, I guess my ambivalence is I can't very, very strongly go, I hate the guy, just desperately want him out. But yes, I don't see the end state still. I didn't see it last season when we did pretty well, right? It's like, what's he trying to evolve this team into? Right now, I have no idea. We're going to start the new season again with fit players and a few new signings and become possession dominant and challenge for the league title. Is it going to be chaos ball? Is he going to do the thing he did against? I have no idea. And that's not a good state to be in. 2 years into the project. But he did win the coupe.
He did.
And we'll be forever grateful.
It was really, really, really special. And I'd like to end. I mean, first of all, I'd like to end by saying hello to everyone. I hope you're all well. I've missed you all.
Have you though? Have you? You abandoned us and just came back for the glory twice a season.
Yeah, and this is the first time there's been any glory involved in that. But that FA Cup win, I'll remember that for a long time. That was really. Yeah. And, yes, it is winning the FA Cup. That's the thing. Obviously, beating City is a huge part of that, both from a kind of local rival perspective. And also, it's nice to be the unquestionable good guys in that battle for a change. That was not necessarily the case in the 90s. But I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm just saying it wasn't clear cut and obvious in the way that it is now. So that was special. But it was just like the PSG win all those years ago when Ollie came and did it. It's the way it was done and who it was done by. It's the kids, right? This is the thing about, this is what feels really, really special. And all the pictures afterwards, the four of them, Rasmus pointing, since Manchester's red now, I guess this is the new Wonderwall. That was really good. Cobby saying, I'm posting this with the bucket hat still on the next morning with all the pictures. These things, they matter. The culture of the club matters. It was so fun. I mean, it was so fun. And football, it's been hard to just find football kind of unremittingly fun for a long time. So that was a really, really beautiful moment. And it kind of it made me be like, oh God, I still love this stupid club. How annoying is that? Everything about it is terrible, but I still love it. So
All right, well, see you for United's first preseason game on July 27th then.
See you at Christmas.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone, for listening this season. We will do content in the summer of some kind or another. I don't know what we can talk about.
If England win the Euros, I'll come back and we'll do one of those.
Yeah. All right. If England win the Euros, I'd be even more shocked than United being City in the cup final. Not they. Yeah. It's just, that Watsit's in charge. Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot, everyone. Bye now.